All right, we're recording. We'll be using Mentimeter polling some more. If you would like to chat with us, please do so. I'm glad to see a lot of the cameras are on. It's going to keep you engaged. So nicely done. The main event here today is the topic of SEM alumni, and it's going to be a rich one, actually. If it sounded not exciting to you, prepare to have your minds blown. And then we'll also have some events here as well. If you haven't muted your phones, please do so if you're not talking.
Chad, it might be worth turning down your music too, just because sometimes you fade out.
Yeah, I unfortunately can't focus. I'm maybe weird, but it's
no worries.
It was a good idea, but it's not working for me. In case anyone cares.
It's all about John Feldman, so
yeah, we know that.
That's awesome. Okay. So, future topic. So we did a pre-survey. I do want to thank 31 responses to the survey. I see a few people here on the call that did respond. For example, Dave Hall. Thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate it. Kim Crossman also. We had a number of folks from Cascade that responded. Yeah, a lot of folks. Thank you all so much. This makes them so much more powerful to hear what you think is important, or to hear your own perspectives on this. It really makes it much more rich. So thank you for your time. When we talk about what does SEM alumni mean, it can be a complicated thing, but for the sake of this call here today, we're going to say it's SEM after the initial phase, after they do their first thing. So the first program cycle, if you will. And so whatever, depending on your program design, that could be 6 months, could be 24 months of that initial phase. But usually it's around 12 to 18 months. Most programs do a cohort in around that time frame, a cohort implementation. And so what I'm talking about is the time after that. Some programs have an offering after that. Some of them have, it's a range. And so the idea, though, is that the notion is, okay, well, what do we do for those folks that have finished this initial phase to kind of get more out of them? Maybe more savings. We invested a lot of work. They put a lot of time into their work to get to this place as well. How do they get more value out? Continual savings. Maybe they get some non-energy benefits as well. Definitely that initial phase, again, the notion is that it's more intensive. They maybe have more workshops per that period than you may have in an SEM alumni period. And with that, it's more expensive, right? But maybe then if the savings rate does drop in the subsequent times, and then at the same time you match that with less support, less intensive things happening, then that can still stay cost effective. It could be, again, a very light thing. I think one of the innovations Energy Trust Industrial did a number of years ago was this is a Kim Crossman. I'm gonna say it was you, Kim, but either you as one of your team members, the Breakfast of Champions, which I always thought was a really cool, fun way to convene these people. So it could be something simple, not something like that, but yeah, it doesn't have to be a whole big program design. It could be some single events. It could be a much bigger thing. I would say there's a question out there, and again, I can remember conversations that I used to have with like Sergio Diaz, who's definitely one of our founding leaders, as was Kim Crossman, and them having different opinions on it about what does transformation mean in a customer or in an organization. So do the customers, individuals transform at the end of your 6 to 12 or 24 months or whatever it is, or is the organization change? But what if there's changes at the organization? People leave roles, so then the organization with their practices backslide. And so I don't want to totally cloud my thoughts on that, but I think it's like the idea of, are they always dynamic, and therefore there's always a role for a program to support them, or not? It's like, no, they should be transformed. Again, it's a question, and again, I wouldn't say we got a clear consensus view from folks on that, but definitely it's something to think about, and definitely there's lots of good thoughts on it. So we asked other questions in the survey. One was, what role do SEM alumni play in your SEM program overall? And so we had some responses to that multiple choice question. And so you can see here on the left side of the slide, definitely being a success story for new participants, perhaps to recruit them in or to illustrate what success looks like for participants, maybe when they had a kickoff workshop to show them, hey, when you get done, you're going to look like these shiny people over here that are doing so great. Or maybe it's a place to test ideas. And with those SEM alumni that may kind of go back into your core program. But you can see some other ideas here as well. On the right, these are additional thoughts that came in also from the survey respondents. And I think, and again, some really good ones here. For example, we had a couple things from this is Energy Trust. The mix of I think it's the commercial side actually here. I think this is Tina Schnell over at Ask Energy, talking about the ability to re-enroll in future cohorts. If folks should decide to unenroll, they can still be kept in the recruitment tracker for future kind of re-enrolling in the SEM alumni group. And so ways to kind of keep tabs on them. They could possibly continue to play a role. Dave Hall from Energy 350 talked about to say, hey, for those that are particularly engaged in those more senior SEM alumni kind of groups, that they could be the place where you test with things, maybe not test with everyone, but test with specific individual organizations. So
Chad, at the QMR last time, we actually had one of our, I think, program administrators talk about how they were taking the SEM alumni and looking at it from a demand response.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah, to use it for for managing peak. And definitely, I can see again if we put that as an example, like load management being something that to hit. And again, it's a great one. Good call, Wendy. By the way, recording, you'll have access to the recording and to the slides. We'll send those out to everyone, so you don't need to take notes on all this. Next is, okay, so what if you have an SEM alumni offering, what does it include? And again, you can see there, some consistency. Definitely regular coaching calls was the most common thing. Still doing workshops. Couple of things down here at the bottom. Continuing to do treasure hunts or energy scans, but maybe doing them on a biannual basis, perhaps. If you did one initially, then you do them every 2 years. Perhaps also updating your energy model on some kind of basis. That can range, and maybe you just test it every year to make sure it's still predictive. Or you just say, no, we do actually do a rebaselining or remodeling. And that's another question I know that Kim brought up to get into that, which we might have some time to get into as well here today. Using energy management assessments or EMAs as a kind of a point to recalibrate the organization, understand how they're doing. Have they progressed? Have they backslid? Or progressed in certain areas, backslid in others, and that's okay. And have them rethink that, and then maybe make it update their an energy plan that they use to kind of guide themselves. Some people talked about only supporting customers in an individual basis, like not through a cohort. Some doing with a cohort of SEM alumni only. Some doing a mix. And so, especially in areas maybe that are more, what's the word I want to say, less populated, or you might have a harder time of finding lots and lots of customers. That you can say, hey, I might be able to find 2 new customers this year. Those first year customers, to stick them with some existing alumni customers in that same geographic area, and they can kind of piggyback and learn from those experienced ones. Other things in here about what would be focused on, carbon, DERs, demand management. 5001 Ready was more common, and definitely I've heard that anecdotally from talking to folks across the country, and also now into Canada as well. Or 5001 Ready, or as 5001 becoming a thing in subsequent years. But yeah, some great insights here. Wendy, any ahas or questions, surprises?
I think it's really interesting that most people are continuing coaching calls.
Mm-hmm.
That does seem to be one of the things that I find that you can utilize, especially if you're kind of like scaling back on the treasure hunts or the other efforts. Yeah. And definitely, I've seen or heard of folks on those coaching calls where, again, they become more higher level. So rather than coaching them on the very basics of getting your team started and doing some simple stuff, to
more advanced things. And how do you keep them motivated? So to motivate them, you may need to bring motivational things. And so, you know, many of you have been on calls with me before. Sometimes I'll reference a Shackleton quote for a story, and giving people ideas like that they can take, energy champions can take into their organization to kind of almost develop them in their career. It will again make them more effective in what they do as an energy champion. So as far as eligibility, the question we had was like, yeah, what requirements do you have to be eligible for your SEM alumni offering? And so definitely seeing a few things here. Of course, being active and engaged, number one. And if they're not going to do that, then that's a pretty common thing that they would be out. You can see some specific things, expectations around whether the energy champion or having executive sponsorship, what the strength of that looks like, or committing to an annual plan again, that they would say, okay, here are the things we plan to do this year, and they would maintain focus on that. Of course, having savings opportunities that they have on deck that they've identified and agreed to be working on. That's, of course, those opportunities, if implemented, will lead to savings typically. So all, again, good things here. Sometimes seeing that, again, the opportunities, seeing that listed in the opportunity register, if that's a tool that you use, like a project tracker. Let's see. Definitely, a couple folks kind of called out the idea of that retention is based often on one individual, a strong individual, and their interest and enthusiasm. And so that's important. How do you maintain that? But at the same time, how do you work on building the resiliency over time so it's not just based on that? And I remember someone told me this a long time ago, where you're moving from personality into process, right? So it's not just about the one person is driving it, and one person's better than no people driving it, so that's great. Then how do we make it more than about that single person? And again, something to always drive towards. Next question was, how do you incentivize? I changed this a little bit to kind of, because I saw the responses. Basically, I saw that no one said milestone payments alone, and versus we definitely saw some people that did say savings alone, as they did say no incentives. But then more than, out of the people that responded, the ones that were doing something, most said milestones and savings incentives, right? So milestone incentive could be you complete something, you submit an energy plan for the year, you get $500. Or you submit your opportunity register, you make your updates to an annual basis, you get $500. Or you've done 3 team meetings, then you get $500. And so maybe you've allocated for each customer up to $2,000, and you give these little things to kind of sweeten the pot for them, to kind of keep them doing the things that are going to lead to the savings later, which is what the savings-based incentive is about. So I would generally say these are more like the leading indicator kinds of things, the milestones, that again lead to the trailing indicator, the savings-based incentives. But other things here, how to incentivize, a couple of different thoughts. Again, I think Kim raised this question. She had a thought, and then someone else kind of had the opposite thought. She was like, well, hey, generally you should probably retain your savings incentive, while the coaching generally would decrease. That is, and then the value of coaching. Versus some folks said, no, retain the coaching and lose a savings incentive. It's like, it was interesting. I was like, I wrote that in. I was like, okay, I agree with Kim, great. And then someone else said the opposite. I'm like, huh. And then someone else said, or retain both.
It is interesting, Chad, how you have down there no incentives, only consultative, technical, or training. And it looks like almost half of the programs have chosen to not have savings at all as an incentive and just do the coaching. It would be interesting to learn more about that dynamic. I see like a debate off, right, between the two, the pros and cons of both. Maybe that's like the next webinar.
Yeah, that'll be at the happy hour in the SEM Summit.
There you go.
Yeah. No, for sure. Different thoughts. So then we go into how to keep the offerings cost-effective multiple years in. We talked like the multi-generational cohorts. You're mixing a first year with an SEM alumni kind of organization. I think in here, Yeah, pretty standard stuff. Oh, actually, this is an important point down here, I think, which is some programs may, if let's say a school district's going to come in and say, yeah, we want to enroll all of our schools in the program, and it's going to, then for the program to support that, it's going to be models for all those, and maybe they're doing energy scans for all those, and then supporting getting, it could be a very expensive thing for the program. And then maybe at the same time, the customers might not really actually be able to have the bandwidth to really effectively implement change across all those facilities, all those buildings. And so some programs will say, hey, choose your top three, or what can you realistically do? Or can you convince us that you really can affect change in all those? And so they say, okay, well, here's the top five we're gonna hit this year. And in subsequent years, we may add on to a year. Well, then those are all then become almost like kind of first year new sources of savings that can help you maintain the savings rate over time. You'll follow. So again, that technique where you can, like, again, you have an initial approach you use to when you initially roll the customers, but then they could then, if it's a manufacturing facility, adding other plants or other parts, if it's a really big plant, other parts of their plant into the offering, where they may not have had an energy scan or had models done for that part of what they do. So a way to kind of like think about it in a slightly different way. Okay, there's a couple questions here that Wendy and I were like, ooh, this could be really rich, and we'll see. So we asked the question, how many customers do you all have in your programs overall by tenure? And so the question was like, how many first year, second year, third, fourth, fifth, and beyond fifth year customers? And so it was a very, very rich set of responses. I sliced and diced it like a number of ways. And then still it was just so complicated, and you'd all be like looking at the screens right now, turning your head sideways. So what I did was I said, okay, well, tell you what, let's just average what the responses were for each of these first year, second year, so on. And so we could get the average across average participants per respondent. And so we could see that there were 21 participants, first year participants, and a general fall off in participants, but still a number in the fourth. Again, these are averages, and so this probably wouldn't be typical, where then you see an increase in the fifth year. This beyond fifth year could be anything at 6 or above, which again is why this number could definitely be bigger, because it's right. It could include 6 year. We saw people responding for 11th year, 12th year. They said, yeah, we got customers just wrapped in their 12th year. So again, this if that seems misleading, again, these are averages, so this is not a perfect. If you think about it, it's gonna be a messy thing, and but still wanted to paint the picture that quite a few folks, there were people that did respond, so that we're seeing some interesting averages there. I did want to call out for total participants by respondent, and so you can see then kind of the tail and peak of that. So we had like one respondent 26, that had over 400 or over 450 participants in their program, versus quite a few that were, let's see if I can even see this, 24 in their program overall, which again could be a mix of first and second year or so on. And again, you can see again how those basically looked, and then how like one organization may have pulled the number up. And then lastly, I wanted to show kind of almost this exact chart, but shown by year. So you can see the total participants, total of the respondents we had, how many first year participants are there out there. And so 536 is the answer if we add up all those numbers. This is very imprecise, by the way. We had a mix of people that were program administrators and program implementers. And in some cases, people had multiple programs. So we're doing the best we can with this. But I think that, again, the main thing is, again, showing this, you can see over time, the total as it compared to the averages. So that's something. I think it makes me want to do a more detailed research on all this, but this is the next question though. Savings rates across multiple years in your program. So if you have first year customers versus second, what does that shape look like? And is Is the second year half of what the first year is, and third half of that, or what? And this is, again, I want to underscore how imperfect this is. Please don't try to claim savings on these numbers. This is, right? Do your own analysis on your own program. I was trying to mash a bunch of things together. But generally, I would say, yeah, that savings did continue in subsequent years, and continued at a pretty healthy rate. So on average, first year savings of 5.3 of the respondents, of all the ways that I described it was imperfect before, but that's a good number. That's that's nice. Then second year, that number dropping to 4.33, 3.6 third year, 3.26, 3.11, and then beyond the fifth, seeing an increase, which again, this is where the average can kind of do some funny things based upon the responses. So again, maybe don't get fixated on this. I think the general shape is not a crazy one. I have seen across in some other programs where actually year two can be bigger. And some of the things here in the notes I think are really, really interesting. For example, this one here, this point, this person said that gas savings are usually highest in year two because the first year, with the first year capturing, that's the first year they're capturing all the heating season savings, that they're seeing more like 9 to 10% in the second year. So that's an interesting insight. Another one, which is, and again, many of you maybe know this quite well, and maybe not know it, that some cohorts, cohort of 8 to 10 customers, you may have 2 to 3 that knock it out at 5 to 15% plus, and the rest don't have really meaningful or claimable level of savings. One thing to call out, I think some people responded to this with the notion of annual savings versus incremental savings. So incremental savings, annual savings would be the savings that they achieve each year kind of on its own. Incremental savings would be the subsequent year would be at a rate, the difference between the first year and the second year savings. If it went above, then they're claiming that they basically have to kind of continue to improve the rate of savings beyond the first year. To not make you all fall asleep, I won't go any further than that. This is like a perfect weedy conversation that we may have in a breakout session here today.
Chad, the survey doesn't necessarily show this, but I think the comments do, which was my experience as a participant, which is the first year you're kind of getting your legs under you. Mm-hmm. And maybe you get some good quick wins, but at least my experience in the cohort that I was in, it was like, oh, we get it now. Can we do it again? Can we try to do it again? Second year, we got it. Let's do this. And so some of those comments like continuous savings have been going up over the last few years, while first year savings have been going down, or, usually the second year is highest with gas savings. I think all of those things have a lot to do with both season, but also kind of participants getting their feet under them, understanding how to do the opportunity register, understanding how to integrate in year two. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. It's so spot on, Wendy. That first year is like an investment, investment of time that will yield almost like an annuity of savings. And so, like you said, it's like that putting that time in, and you may get a decent savings. But even if the number in year 2 and 3 is not better than year 1, it's still solid. And so even if you hit the low-hanging fruit, you're still going to be hitting other things because, yeah, you almost have more bandwidth now in year 2 because you got the initial processes set up. So I think Wendy's points are awesome. All right. So we talked about, we could do breakout rooms for this. And I've thought about this, but this may get a little too, let's say we give it a shot. If it doesn't work, we'll pull you all back in. So one moment here, let me just get this thing. Breakout rooms, 7, assign, let you choose your room, creating these. Okay, so I'm opening these rooms. Okay, so I've opened these. So you should have a thing that's appeared that says you can choose to join a room. Here are the rooms. These points were brought up by the respondents to the survey, and I chose some of the meatier topics that I think were really interesting. So let's go through what these are. Breakout room number 1 would talk about how models work. And so this is Kim Crossman one. I thought was a great one. The brittleness of the failure of models over time. She was even specifically talking about industrial, but I think commercial, this can definitely apply as well. The time and money to maintain or update the models in year 3, 4, or 5. Does this change that the participant never fully adopts or uses the model themselves? If we think back a couple of slides ago, we were talking, do you rebaseline automatically? Do you kind of monitor the models over time to see, are they still predictive? Are they good enough? Or do we just say every 5 years we rebaseline, i.e. we make a new model at those time frames? And so, yeah, so this one's about that. The next breakout room will be how to ensure energy teams remain and are vibrant. So we talked about the resiliency, so trying to make it more than about one person. You want the team to be there, but then how do you keep that thing going and make sure that, I know Ross Lancaster brought this question up years ago. He and I were talking about this. Ross is with SEG. Brought up the question of, like, if the energy team has a team meeting that they've scheduled, and at the last minute the champion can't make it, will the team still meet? Will the team still meet without the champion if the last minute change? And if they do, that's a good indicator they're successful. But yeah, how do you keep these folks going? How do you keep them vibrant? Breakout room number 3, how to support knowledgeable participants with different workshops or coaching than for the new folks. So a couple of ideas: building operator certification, or BOC. Could be some great knowledge collection and certification. So many tools are brought up on 50,001 Ready, like the energy mapping and other things that they've got available. So this could be things to hit there again for participant knowledge. Breakout room 4, do SEM programs, how do they stay engaged with sites after they've graduated? So if they've kind of completed their time, is there an open door for employees to kind of continue to come? This is a question that Dave Hall from 350 brought up. And so what do you do for those folks? Those are, even I would call even more, would resemble alumni. Folks have gone to the wild. How do you stay engaged with them? And how can you stay involved with them as well? How can you leverage them and so on? Breakout room 5, how do you collaborate with other institutions, like financial institutions, for example, to support maybe like seed-based loans to implement big capital projects? OSHA or others that are interested in funding or promoting, like providing better work environments for employees, or other institutions that are out there. Breakout room 6, can the utility claim savings from a customer after they've ended the participation in the program, but their earlier years kind of caused the follow-on savings, right? They implemented some things that now are going to yield savings over time, and or folks researched on spillover. So I think both these, this is Genrick from PG&E asked this question, and Pamela Burkle from Cascade asked the first one. This one's about kind of utility claims and kind of philosophy around that and savings. And then lastly, talk about the hybrid approach of mixing first year and continuous, our alumni sites together. How do you do that? So breakout room number 6 could get into that. So in the breakout rooms, I'm going to leave this slide up so you can see which one to choose. We'll have 15 minutes, and I want you to choose the group we're going to get to. I'm going to put this in the chat, but basically, I want you to discuss what's being done in these areas and what questions do we have, or what's not clear in these areas, what still needs to be addressed, or what's a mystery. And if you ask that as a question, then perhaps others in that group can share their thoughts on solutions. So in the pop out, again, you'll have this breakout. You can then choose your room. People, oh nice, people are starting to join rooms. So look at your favorite list up here, breakout room 1.
Chad, we have a question in the chat about whether or not we're going to debrief, or will we be taking the notes and sending them out?
We will do a quick debrief. So there'll be pick a note taker and presenter who will capture some of these thoughts. They will then present back out to this group once we reconvene. And then we will do our best to kind of take those notes. But if you note takers, you can then basically paste them back into the chat to us or email them to us, and we'll put them into the deck to redistribute back out. Great question. So choose your group that you want to join. What looks interesting to you? I'm just curious. What do you think? If you had to choose your top.
They all do.
I know.
I think if I would want to choose one that I didn't know a lot about. So maybe like
Mhm.
collaboration with other institutions.
Yeah.
I've never done that one. That one
Yeah.
looks interesting.
For sure. It's almost like you don't know what you don't know. There's so
Right.
many organizations out there. You don't, Daniel Ouellette doesn't see a pop-up to choose from. So if
I think to the breakout room number 6, because I think a lot of programs have continuous SEM and then people just fall off. And what do you do with them? That one to me is pretty interesting. I don't know that a lot of organizations tackle that well.
Mhm. Yeah. Daniel, let's see. For those of you who are having trouble, put in the chat and then say what room you want to go into, and I think I can manually send you there. So Daniel, if you could put in the chat of which room you want to go into. Room 7, perfect, Ulrich. So I'll send Ulrich to 7. All right, you're gone. All right, Daniel's figured it out, going to room 1, great. Most folks are taking off and flying away, that's great.
Woohoo!
Yeah. A number of folks haven't yet, that's just fine. You'll just have to sit here and listen to us. Hey, Mike.
Can I just like each one for 2 minutes? That
I think you can join and then like get out and come over back to us and then join back into another one.
Can you add Paul Tangretti to group 1?
Yep.
And then Lori would like to go to room 2.
Lori.
Yeah.
I don't see Lori. Lori. I'm sorry, what's Lori's last name?
Froelich. Did I say that right, Lori? You still there? Maybe she jumped. Is she in room 2? She is not. Okay, maybe
she's in room 4.
Did you see her? Okay. Maybe she switched.
Yeah, we should figure it out.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see, anyone else in the chat that's messaging? Okay, so then again, I'll say send a message to the whole group.
If you're having trouble choosing, room 5 does not have that many people, neither does room 2. Or room 7. Chad, I see the message that you just put in the chat. I don't know if that means the groups do. I know that sometimes there's like, you have to toggle between like the main room and the groups to be able to send the chat correctly.
Yeah, I'm trying to, let's see, 1 second. Looks like there's like a limited. Okay, send a message to everyone in the rooms. Anyone else that's still here? I see Kathleen O'Connor, John Howlett. Excuse me. I assume though, if you've not joined one, it's either because you prefer hanging out with us or you didn't realize that we're in a breakout room and you're actually away from your computer, which is fine.
I mean, who doesn't want to hang out with us?
I know, we're very charming.
I think we're going to be short on time for report outs. Is there anything I can do to help speed up the other stuff? Just so you know, you're showing the Menti screen right now,
Cool.
but it's in like create mode, not there you go. That's presentation mode.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's nice that you can change that on the fly.
That's why I like Mentimeter and use PowerPoint the way we do. It's like just kind of foolproof. Or can instantly diagnose what the heck's going on. Welcome back, folks, as you're starting to reappear. Hello, Michael and Tu and Hallie. Greetings. Hello. Greetings, Ian. Hi, Joan. Hey, Derek Okada. What's going on? Ollie Farah. Hello, hello. Okay, in the on the screen share, you should be able to see the next Mentimeter poll question. What's a key takeaway you have from the breakout rooms or the presentation content we covered before the breakout rooms? So give that some thought. What's a key takeaway?
What's maybe like an aha, something you might try to integrate? It's complicated.
Yeah.
It is complicated, but it works.
Yeah, right. There's definitely a potential there. There's a lot of twists and and again, this is where we need like a good SEM happy hour, to discuss the nuance of some of these things. But it's great.
Oh, your topic was not popular. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that, but that's a good thing to know. We don't have to focus on it anymore, maybe, or maybe we can chat individually. Policy matters. PUC support for SEM program continuance. That's very true.
Oh, that came from California.
Yeah, I had a sneaking suspicion, Derek. Multi-general cohorts are possible. Yeah. It feels a little wonky at first, but once you get used to them, the way in which continuous SEM participants support the new participants is kind of awe-inspiring.
Indeed.
A lot of comments about maintaining and manipulating models to keep them working. Yeah, I think rebaselining is really important there. Yeah, how to find the sweet spot for content when you have a mix of participants with different experience levels. That's very true.
So the note takers, if you could please email, I'll put it in the chat. You should all have my and Wendy's email addresses, but in case you don't,
Yeah, lots of interest in staying connected with sites after SEM. I would agree with that. How do we support those people that have moved on? I like the concept of the option to just ping a coach when you need one, especially when you think about trying to connect to those capital projects.
I have a question about that. Communication or contact after SEM participation. So is it kind of to keep the door open so that maybe reparticipation of the customers, or does that happen? Whoever's, maintaining the contact or open communication. Are customers coming back on after they get out for a year and joining back up again? That's a question, or year or two.
Yeah, I've seen that personally, customers being out for a year or two, and then maybe you have an executive sponsor that changes over and there's a way to reinvest in SEM, or you have an energy champion that wasn't able to pull together a good energy team and somebody new comes along and really knocks it out of the park. Yeah. I've seen people organizations go like this.
So does anybody do something with customers that have already, that did participate then and just have an open workshop? Has anybody tried any of that to just spur the conversation on, or is it just in recruiting that they, contact those customers?
That's a great question. Does anybody have an approach that they've used outside of an SEM cohort or the official SEM offering to maintain either services to alumni? Maybe you could put it in the chat.
Like I know, again, a lot of my examples are based on Energy Trust. Some are often, well, Energy Trust, BC Hydro. I think both of those two organizations have newsletters that go out, that they would make sure that those folks are on those mailing lists. Some also have like an annual event. I know Hydro, Tamara, what's the name, or Rob, or the name of the annual. There's Marcus also. The annual event you would have is like a big kind of customer conference, basically.
Yeah, there's some good stuff too in the chat coming,
Okay.
Marty. And Chad, can I ask to move on just so I can do a couple plugs? A few words from me. First of all, I want to thank all of the North American SEM Collaborative members. This was your topic, and it was an awesome topic. I think there's a lot of meat here we could continue to dig into. So thank you to the SEM members that picked this topic. We appreciate that. Speaking of which, if you're not a member, you can become one. And if you are a member, we're getting ready to reach out to you to renew your annual membership. It'll be more or less the same approach as last year with a silver, bronze, or a bronze, silver, and gold level with a certain amount of members per each level. So if you are a member, just get ready that someone from the North American SEM Collaborative team will be reaching out. And if you're not a member and you want to get involved in the quarterly member roundtables or choosing the topics that we look at, or also part of membership is having a certain number of people go to the SEM Summit, let us know. And we'll also be reaching out to you if you don't. Speaking of the SEM Summit, it is August 24th from noon to 4 at Asilomar in Pacific Grove, California. It will be in person. We're currently seeking feedback and information from SEM evaluators about lessons learned. And we're also going to be looking at deep decarbonization. So we're excited about that. We're also going to have a members only happy hour. So if you can attend, please do. We'd love to have you. And Chad, it's noon, so I'm going to stop there.
Sounds great. If anyone wants to fill out one more survey, your most should have refreshed to see if you're planning to attend the SEM Summit. And you can let us know where you are with that. Hope you can join us again. Tu Tran is already there. Let's go hang out with Tu and on the beach. It looks like also Derek Sakata. Derek Sakata is also there on the beach as well. It's a lovely venue. But yeah, please do make it if you can. And if you can't, we'll have many other ways to connect. So
warm.
Stay in touch. What's that, Derek?
Bring a warm jacket for the bonfire.
Yeah, right. You will need if you don't have a fleece jacket, if you don't bring one with you, you will own one by the time you leave, because ACEEE branded ones sell well there. But it's a lovely place. Well, good. Hopefully you can make it. And again, it's a wonderful conference by itself already. But then the SEM Summit is icing on the cake. Perfect. Well, it's been wonderful seeing you all. We look forward to seeing you all soon. I think our next webinar is in August. Or sorry, no, the SEM Summit is in August. Our next webinar will be in October on multi-jurisdiction or multi-utility SEM. Again, all the topics here are chosen by the North American Collaborative members. So we look forward to seeing you on that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and take care, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks all.
You.